Good evening. Welcome to the 5-8, where we discuss each of the week's 5 most fucked up topics for 8 minutes. 5 topics, 8 minutes, 2 hosts, a guest, some singing, a lot of curse words, and as many cocktails as we deem necessary. LB, how are you?
I'm well. Back on my water.
Okay.
It's that kind of week. How you doing? I see you're having a Manhattan.
Yeah, I just default. It's like my default. I default to a Manhattan. Yeah.
How was your week? A lot happened.
I can't even remember.
The Pope died.
We're going to talk about that.
We'll talk about
We had a great 5-8.5 show. That was like
that.
really wonderful.
Oh my God.
I was kind of in a yuck mood Wednesday, kind of, and it totally just made me feel better. In addition to being awesome and informative and funny and great guest and all that stuff, they were great. Lisa Nadine killing it.
Lisa and Nadine lifting us up midweek.
Mm-hmm.
We really need it.
We do.
It's like it does still throw off my clock. I'm like, oh, it's Saturday. No, it's Thursday.
I know. I'm getting used to it. Yeah,
we're trying to get used to the clock. But if you guys haven't seen it, it's right here on this channel. So you just have to subscribe here, join here, become a member here, and you will get all the alerts and you will see it when it comes up. And it's amazing. I just, there's something about both of their spirits, Nadine Smith and Lisa Graves, the hosts of 5-8.5, that just, you're right. It just makes me, it gives us hope. Their mood, their vibe is hopeful.
Yeah.
And their guest, who hopefully we'll have that clip for everybody to see. If you haven't caught it, you can go back and watch it. Their guest was, I thought, amazing.
Yeah, he was really good.
It was really about, he started Leaving MAGA nonprofit, an organization for folks that need an off-ramp to get out of that. What was amazing was hearing him talk about the movement. That it's this, he still talks about it like he's in it. The movement. And it was, the Trump movement. Not that he's excited about it, but he's like, these people, they're in the movement.
Mm-hmm.
And it just, all the cult language that's just naturally there for those folks. It kind of tells us what we're up against, but there's hope because, as he said, the scales fell off my eyes. I think the insurrection was a big thing for him, and he's been working hard ever since. So, not that we need to retell that whole show, but I loved it.
It was a great show. I
loved it. That's our guest. Hang on.
Yeah.
Let her know we're live on air.
I was going to say, wait, are you going to speakerphone it, or what are you going to do?
I'm not going to speakerphone it.
Okay.
So our guest right before the show, right before we went live, lost her power. So we're hoping her power comes back. I'm going to be texting. If I look down, that's what I'm doing. I'm texting with the guest, trying to get her power back on. But in the meantime,
I want to say also, True Player, who does our moderates our chat room, is unavailable this week. She's on. She's fine, but she is on injured reserve. She'll be back next week. We want to say a shout out to her, and that we will miss her on the show in the chat room. And I often tell a joke like at the beginning of the show, as you know. So I've prepared a joke. You want to hear my joke?
Yes, I'm ready for the joke.
Okay, here we go. Pete Hegseth. That's it. That's my joke. I have another one. Want to hear the other joke?
Yeah.
Kash Patel. That's it. 2 great jokes. I mean, boom.
I don't know that they're that funny. I'm having a hard time finding the funny, but they are jokes.
They're evil. They're evil and they're dangerous, they are absolutely clowns. That's why he has the makeup room, because he's a fucking clown.
Okay.
We're going to talk probably
We've
next
lost our guest. The whole power's out. I don't know what's going on around the whole town.
Well, hopefully your power doesn't go out.
I hope not. I don't know why it would go out. So she's in this area. She's from Lake Placid, and in Lake Placid, and we will have her back. So it's you and I tonight. We'll buzz through. We'll pick
unless some miracle
happens.
Power does get restored.
Oh my gosh. Okay. All right.
That's too bad.
Well, let's get going with the show. Jokes, all jokes aside, you forgot there was more jokes, but you've forgotten them. But those are the two biggest jokes
that I had prepared.
Those are two pretty big ones. Pretty big ones. Yeah.
We'll talk about the Kash Patel thing in the third topic. That's what we'll do.
Okay.
So, okay. All right.
Oh God, help us.
That's really the theme of this year, 2025. Oh God, help us.
I say it every day, 1,000 times a day. Oh my God.
I know.
Okay, so do you want me to jump into this first thing? Let me get the timer on. Oh dear God. Yeah. I'm gonna need a timer for this one, guys, because I'm gonna.
No, you're second. I'm first.
Are you first?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm the shadow envoy. Okay. I saw.
Unless you want to go the other way. I don't.
No. You go.
Okay.
Timer's on.
Okay. So I want to talk a little bit. I had this like revelation about the whole Putin thing because these guys are, they're trying to negotiate a peace. They call it a deal. Okay, which isn't really a word there, but that's what Trump keeps calling it. We're gonna get a deal. We're gonna get a deal, and the media is sort of reporting on it in this way that like everything's just normal, like these are fucking Otto von Bismarck or something, and not this guy that you're going to talk about in the second segment. So I want to just pull back, just give a little history lesson and how it relates to Putin and what's happening now. We're going to go back to 1648. You know what happened in 1648, of course, is the end of the 30 Years' War, which is a brutal, horrible war in which, like,
we all knew that off of our head.
Horrible war in which, I mean, entire towns were wiped out and literally dogs were running around taking over the towns because there were so few people. It was a horrible nightmare, this 30 Years' War. Okay. And at the end of it, and it was started because of, so-and-so was going to take the throne here. And then somebody was Catholic, but they were Protestant, and they threw them out of the window in Prague, and that started a war for 30, the defenestration of Prague. Okay. In 1648, there is the Peace of Westphalia, at which is established the Westphalian Order, which basically says, hey, we're going to have these countries now. And when you're in your country, you're not allowed to invade another country, not allowed to do that because there's sovereignty. You're not allowed to interfere and lean on other countries and make them do things. And like, if you're a Catholic country, be Catholic, fine. If you're neutral, fine. But you can't go tell country B what they're supposed to believe. That's also, we're done with that shit. We fought about that for a long time.
Yeah.
Westphalian Order has held.
What about heads of state?
Yeah, heads of state are heads of state. Sovereigns are sovereigns. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Fast forward 200 years or so, 1854. During the Crimean War, because people have been fought over Crimea before. Florence Nightingale is there, tending to the sick and the wounded, and basically establishes and invents modern nursing. 1863, the Red Cross is founded by Henri Dunant. 1864, the very first Geneva Convention, basically spearheaded by the Red Cross, saying, if we've got the Red Cross on us, leave us alone, sick and wounded. You can't do anything. You can't do anything.
That's a crime.
That's a crime. Yeah, it's a war crime. That's the first Geneva Convention. Second Geneva Convention, 1902, that extends to maritime also. So if you blow up a ship and people are just there, drifting, you can't just let them die. You got to do the prisoner of war thing. 1929, POWs. You can't, mistreat POWs. There's a very specific ways that they have to be treated, fed, all this kind of stuff. And 1949, it extends to civilians, and it has to extend to civilians because Hitler, that's what Hitler does.
That's right.
So here are some things that are made illegal in the Geneva Convention. I promise you, we're getting to the point here.
Okay.
Deportation of individuals, groups, hostage taking, torture, collective punishment, quote, outrages upon personal dignity, which is basically a euphemism for horrible things that we want to discuss. You can't execute or imprison someone without due process. And you can't discriminate in your about race, religion, all that kind of stuff. So I think the Geneva Convention is too woke for us now, LB. It's too woke. There's DEI in the Geneva Convention. Also in 1949, NATO was established. And since 1949 and the establishment of NATO, there's been basically, as we've discussed many times in the show, no war certainly in Western Europe, and very little war in Europe at all until recently. 1991, Soviet Union collapses. 1996, Budapest Memorandum, in which Ukraine surrenders its nuclear weapons to Russia in exchange for a security guarantee that Russia will not invade. And the Minsk is 2014, 2015, the Minsk Accords, basically saying that we're going to have a ceasefire now in the Donbass region in eastern Ukraine. Now, why do I mention all of these things? Because Vladimir Putin has violated every last fucking one of them. Every one. You can go through the whole damn list. He's in violation of all of them. So when we're sending some envoy, of whom more later, to Moscow to meet with this guy, this is who he is. He's a guy who has violated literally every goddamn treaty that there exists since 1648. So, so the question is, given all of these violations, why on earth, why would we trust anything that he says? Why would we trust a security guarantee from this guy? There already is a ceasefire because of Minsk, and you fucking violated it. If you want to have an agreement, maybe, the one that you already agreed to, fuckhead. Okay.
Yeah. How about that?
Why are we going to trust the Trump administration, which is now leaning, like I said, too woke, to DEI, these Geneva Conventions, which is, as you saw, as I listed these things, these are things that we are now doing actively here in these United States. And then this is the thing that I really realized, and what made me realize it is the bomb that blew up the Russian general in Moscow, which was a wonderful thing. Goodbye, fuckhead. I'm glad you're dead. Okay. Why is Putin off limits? Why? Why do we treat this guy like he's some head of state? Why do we afford him the conventions of that? Why do we yield to the norms when he has violated all the conventions, when he's thrown all the norms away? He is a gangster. He is a thug. He is a warlord, and he is single-handedly responsible for all this death, destruction, horror, outrage, potential World War III, all of it, and the fucking asshole who's in Washington right now. All of these things this one man is responsible for. Why are we, he's gotten rid of all these treaties and conventions. Why are we bound to them with regards him? He is it's a mafia state. It's time for some mafia statesmanship, He should be treated like Paul Castellanos was treated. That's all I'm saying. I don't see any reason why we shouldn't. So
get him on an empty stomach too.
Yeah,
walking into his favorite whatever.
It's really something. This guy.
It's really something. I agree. I don't. The world is taken this very dark turn.
Yeah.
We certainly have a thug of our own back in, I'll talk about that in a second. And or maybe we'll just get right into it. It's sort of a wretched mistake, but I'm not sure who's making it that has the power to do anything different. I feel like we're Putin's protection racket now.
Yeah.
The U.S. is his Donald, the goods he has on him. Who was it? Was it Pritzker? We were trying to figure that out earlier in the production.
I think it was Pritzker. Yeah.
Yeah. A governor said, someone asked him, press asked him, what would you ask Donald if he's a friend of yours? I said, what does Putin have on you? What's the blackmail he's got over you? Because we're right back. We're just replaying, Trump presidency 1.0. 2.0 is not that different. It's really not.
Remember, Putin is under indictment for the International Criminal Court, which comes out of the Geneva Conventions. So he really should never leave Russia. Anytime he goes anywhere, he should just be arrested immediately by whoever's there. I don't care if it's a head of state making the arrest. The guy is a criminal, and he needs to be detained for war crime upon war crime upon war. How many war crimes can you commit before we stop treating you like like your Otto fucking von Bismarck or something? I don't know, like your Talleyrand. He ain't Talleyrand.
Well, I just have to say, I don't know who would do it. I think maybe the call to action is to our I mean, are they still our allies? Are they our former allies? I'm not even sure.
They're our allies.
To NATO nations of, you know, why are you holding by a set of rules that this man has just obliterated? When removing him, just that one person, removing that one person brings all of this to a resolution. It does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just, it's too much.
It's one
too much
man's
death.
war. It is. It's one man's war. Yeah. Okay. So
tell us about the envoy. Who is this guy?
So I was looking, I was like, Steve Witkoff, who is this Steve Witkoff? And it's all over. Finally, press is talking about him. So Steve Witkoff is our underworld Secretary of State. I think is the best way to put it. Our shadow Secretary of State. He's following along there. And Donald assigned this man, Steve Witkoff, special envoy to the Middle East at the beginning. We're now 100 days in. Have we hit 100 days?
I think it's 100 days today.
So I think it was during the transition period. Witkoff was a person that no one had talked about, kind of it's sort of a new figure on the scene for the political press. And he was going to go to the Middle East and deal with Gaza and bring peace there. And because he's some kind of incredible negotiator out of the real estate world in New York City. And
Jared Kushner 2.0. Yeah.
Jared Kushner 2.0. And everyone praises this guy, in Donald's world. And, he's the one, if anyone can do it. I mean, yes, we have as confirmed Secretary of State Marco Rubio. This is not Marco's job. Marco's job is going and securing, prisons and gulags. That's his job. He's chief gulag guy. And I think in that way, there has been a little bit of learning from Trump 1.0 when it comes to inside this administration. Remember Fiona Hill and her testimony? And it was for the first impeachment hearing based on the very perfect phone call that Donald's still talking about to this day. I had a perfect phone call. They after me because of my perfect phone call. It was a perfect phone call with Zelensky, where he was asking Zelensky, I need you to do me a favor, though. Just announce. And the favor was that he asked of Zelensky, and this is what led to his first impeachment. He wanted Zelensky to just announce there was going to be an investigation into Joe Biden and Burisma. He said, you don't have to do the investigation, just announce this investigation. And what Fiona Hill testified in that impeachment hearing is because she was working, she's a Russian expert, and she was working for our Secretary of State at the time, who was John Bolton. And John Bolton was calling this there was a shadow group in there. He was calling them the drug dealers, literally, like, I don't want anything to do with this drug deal. And the shadow group that was doing their own diplomacy to get this Zelensky investigation, get him to say it out loud and everything. This whole agenda was Rudy Giuliani and this guy named Sunland, and the bald guy. I don't know if you guys remember this. Okay. Who was, I think came out of real estate. So
Gordon Sunland, right?
Gordon Sunland. So Rudy's in there running with his agenda. That was Trump's agenda. But the Secretary of State and the statescraft was doing something else altogether when it came to Ukraine. And Fiona Hill had realized, okay, these two things are at a crossroads right now. They're at a head. That we have opposing agendas here. And it just erupted into this scandal and into this impeachment. Okay. So I just want everybody to check that, because what Witkoff is a functional Rudy Giuliani.
Rudy Giuliani with 3 fewer martinis in him. Yeah.
3 fewer martinis. He's a functional Rudy Giuliani. And Marco Rubio is not in there trying to do regular Secretary of State stuff. He's out. So that's the lesson they've learned. So who is this Steve Witkoff who's going in, running in full force with Donald's agenda, which is very different than the United States agenda? Right? It's starting to merge now. Donald's getting more power. in his first term, the United States agenda was very, very different than Donald Trump's agenda, because Donald Trump was this money laundering gangster guy, thug guy, who's owned by Vladimir Putin. And so I was like, all right, I got to figure out who Steve Witkoff is. I looked at this thing and I saw, oh, he was a real estate lawyer. Okay, I think I forgot to put on my clock. Keep the clock. He's a real estate lawyer from New York. And the story that the AP ran with, and everybody was sort of covering, is, oh, he met Donald at a deli, back in the day, and they hit it off. And he did work at this firm that handled a case for the Trump org about, one of the vendors that didn't get paid. It was sort of like treated as this one-off. The press has covered this guy as if he was working for a law firm, in the real estate division of this law firm, and that only handled one little sort of minor lawsuit for Trump org. And then years later, somewhere in that mix, Donald and Steve Witkoff met at a deli and they hit it off. And Witkoff he did move from being a real estate attorney and working for this firm, Dreyer, and I always forget the last part of it, Dreyer, we'll just call it Dreyer, into becoming having his own real estate company, and ended up with like $2 billion in Manhattan real estate, which I'm sorry to say, if that's your value of the real estate you're doing, you're not, there's much bigger players. But he's in there. He's in the mix. He's, successful for sure. So that's the official story on Steve Witkoff. So I start looking up this Dreyer. I'm like, wait a minute. Let me go into my old stuff when I was pulling apart Fred Trump's money laundering and business front for the Genovese crime family, and the merging of the Genovese and basically the commission, the 5 families. Roy Cohn's, was his boy, all of that. And then Donald, of course, is like Fred's boy. Fred's boy is going to become, the big real estate guy, and finally get Fred out of Brighton Beach and into Manhattan, right? Wasn't his territory, because he was laundering for a different family. He had to have some kind of merger deal go on with the commission, with the Gambino crime family. That's where Sammy Gravano comes in, and how Donald knows Sammy. But this was all put together by Fred and Roy Cohn and this law firm, Dreyer. Oh, look at that. Look at what Dreyer was doing. So there's a guy named Jerry Schrager. Gerald Schrager. Now, when I landed on that name, he was the head. He was a partner at Dreyer and the head of the real estate stuff there. And Trump Organization had been his client from Fred Trump days and through Donald. Okay. So this real estate, this wasn't just a one-off. There was maybe some litigation with the vendor. This guy, Jerry Schrager, who was also at Donald's wedding to Ivana. Okay, I don't think he officiated. Somebody else officiated, but he's right up there. Fred was the best man, And there's Jerry Schrager, because very, very close. He did everything. All the casinos, all of the rail yards, the in New York, that failed project, the Grand Hyatt, right, which was the Commodore before, all of it. Even the Eastern Shuttle, when Donald tried to get into airlines, that has nothing to do with real estate. This guy and that firm handled all of it. For all of the Trump Taj and all of I unpacked all of that money laundering that was happening there, and the fake instruments at Ace Greenberg, at Bear Stearns, all the illegality. All of every time you saw stuff of like, oh my God, he got hit with money laundering this, and he can't go into Australia because of the money laundering there. That was all Dreyer. It was all this law firm, and this guy that's now over in the Kremlin. Even during Signalgate, he was on that Signalgate for Pete Hegseth, looking at the war plans from inside the Kremlin, meeting with Putin. He went from the Middle East envoy to the guy that's supposed to come up with the deal. between Ukraine and Russia to end the war, that guy, Witkoff, was a junior associate underneath Schrager the whole fucking time.
So does that mean that the deli where Trump met him was at the law firm?
I don't know, probably. So you have attorney-client privilege. This is a guy that's got all the secrets. He can't talk about it. He's like, that's a bonus, right? I got my lawyer doing this. He's got his Roy Cohn going over there, right? Being this envoy, doing a deal. And I think it is important, Greg, and I'm glad you pointed out that they use that word deal, and then we'll move on to the next topic. I think we have to look at this from the frame of he's doing a deal for Donald. This is his former lawyer, right? He's not Schrager. He was a junior there. Schrager was the partner, but he was in there. He was at that firm. So we have to, instead of thinking that all of this envoying is about statecraft, like what Fiona Hill and John Bolton would be doing, like what Marco Rubio, I don't know if he would be doing it or not, but that's certainly his job. This is the Rudy Giuliani thing. This is, will you do me a favor? This is what's the cut for Donald. If he's into Gaza, and this is the guy who knows how all that other stuff was handled and hidden, and then went into real estate himself with that knowledge that he gained from Schrager and that law firm of how to hide the salami. How do we have real estate as money laundering fronts? How do we do deals with heads of crime families like Putin, right? And get a cut of that for ourselves, for our client, Donald. I think we have to bring that knowledge into this, since this is the guy. I think there's a reason this is the guy, and it's not because he's so great at this job and oh my God, he makes everybody comfortable in the room. Of course he makes you comfortable in the room, just like Donald Trump made Bill Maher comfortable. You're sitting down with a con man, with a gangster. Bill Maher. You're sitting down with a mafia boss. You think those guys aren't charming? What are you stuck in Martin Scorsese land? You think they don't know how to fucking play you? Yeah, just, I was having such a great, he's so different than I thought. Yeah, you got played, you dumbass.
Donald Trump once sued him. Remember, Donald Trump once sued him because he said that Donald Trump was descended from an orangutan.
I know. So well, now they're friends. And it's, he must be a good guy because he stroked my ego.
Or it's giving me content to talk about in my stupid failing show.
Anyway, that aside.
I got something to say.
I think this is, from Gaza to now Crimea and whatever territory, they're in there. He's in there negotiating a land deal, just like he did for that real estate law firm to help Fred and then Donald clean up a bunch of filthy money. You don't think that this guy knows how to make a deal so that some of that money from whatever they're negotiating, whatever land deal, finds its way through some offshores or whatever? Or some, let's resurrect Bear Stearns and get those dirty old instruments out of there. Come on.
I think you're right, because I read about it. Here, I have to show you this. I forgot.
Okay.
It's going to upload, and then I think it'll go on the screen. I think. Oh no, it didn't. I could have done this the whole time. All right. So this is the last two paragraphs in the Washington Post story that ran today about Witkoff talking to Putin.
I didn't see this. I was too buried in 1983.
The deal Witkoff presented in Paris also suggests that sanctions imposed on Russia since 2014 in relation to its aggression towards Ukraine would be lifted, which would pave the way for the U.S. and Russia to strike deals on energy and in other industrial sectors. In Moscow, Witkoff also met with Kirill Dmitriev, Putin's business envoy in the talks, who has presented multiple economic proposals to Trump as part of broader negotiations through which the Kremlin aims to normalize relations with Washington. So I read that as we're going to give Trump a deal, not the United States a deal. We're going to give Trump a deal, and then Trump's going to give us a deal, and then we can get back to normal. This isn't like some weird, this isn't the fucking Washington Post story about this
City,
today.
Baby. Shakedown City.
Shakedown City. That's it. So
yeah,
they're there for the deals.
Yeah. My point being in this, I don't know what they're talking about over there. Who knows? But I get why Donald would want to send in the guy that was at the law firm that helped him with all of his slimy business deals.
Yeah. He reminds me of, he's like a football coach, like one of these crappy old football coaches who's like stubborn. He's like, I'm going to bring in my own defensive coordinator, and it winds up being like, Joe Paterno at Penn State bringing in the guy, and just sticking by his guy. It's my guy. I got to stick by my guy.
Yeah. And everything's like, I'm sure he's been a legitimate businessman after, he was a lawyer. It's not like they weren't like there was threatened to the bar, and there was a lot of stuff going on there with Jerry and Jerry Schrager. But looks like it could have gotten him disbarred, and he kind of weaseled his way out of some things. But I just think to lose the framework of who these people are and what they came out of simply because it's like, no, he's charming, or he makes people comfortable. Oh, he's really good in real estate in New York. You don't know what you're talking about. New York this is all above the board. That's not the point.
Yeah.
The point is what they're doing. What the fuck is that as a real New York real estate guy doing over in Russia after being in Gaza? Negotiating on behalf of the United States of America to end a war
in which the United States of America is not participating, by the way. A war with Ukraine isn't even there. That's not a thing. Got to have, it's ridiculous. The whole thing is a joke.
It's a joke.
It's a joke. But I am pleased to say we have another sponsor. I don't know if you knew this.
Okay, all right. Thank God people are showing up to help us.
Yeah, it's good.
And now a word from our sponsor.
Are you the victim of a purse snatcher? Thief made off with your pocketbook? Do you find yourself without your passport as you're about to board a flight to some banana republic? Well, I got some good news. We can help. Hi, I'm Nunzio Ciccarelli, president of the Bank of the Bada Bing, here to tell you about our new stolen goods recovery service. Fell off the truck. If your stuff gets pinched, the thief's got to convert the stolen goods into cash. Believe me, that mook don't want your Hermes handbag. I can't reveal our trade secrets because that's proprietary information. But let's just say, it fell off the truck. We have a comprehensive knowledge of and a good working relationship with every fence from here to San Salvador. Whether it's the key card to a federal agency building, your prescription herpes medication, or $3,000 in cash you were going to use to pay for the hotel where you bang your side piece so your husband don't find out. If you lost it, we'll find it. No questions asked. If you're looking for stolen property, why go anywhere else? Fell off the truck. If we don't got your stuff, we'll get your stuff. And now, back to the show.
Yay, Chuck.
Chuck killing it as always. Did you think, by the way, I couldn't decide if I should have Nunzio pronounce it Hermes or Hermes, if he should say it right or not.
Did he say it right? I can't remember.
Hermes? Yeah, I landed on it's funnier if he says it correctly.
I think it's funny if he says it correctly. Yeah.
Like he knows.
He definitely fenced some Hermes. Yeah, he knows.
It's actually a Gucci handbag, which would have made more sense with the Italians, but whatever. It's fine.
God. Oh, God, help us, these people. Yeah.
I know.
So very funny about Christy Noem and that whole story. And when you sent that to me, I get this stuff from Greg. He's like, I got it. And he sends it to me. And I'm like, usually having my coffee and going, spit taking everywhere and laughing so hard. That one made me laugh out loud. That made me laugh.
Nunzio. It's a good episode for Nunzio. I
It
think
is.
Nunzio we should send him to Moscow. He'd get a better deal, you know?
I think he would actually be doing. He would know how to do something on behalf of the United States more than this Steve Witkoff. Oh my God! There was so much more too, guys. I found out about that, and I know we do not have our guest. I'm really bummed out. She'll come back on. She's an educator and activist, and is a big figure up here in Lake Placid, helping get things organized and move the needle. And probably her work, along with several other key individuals, would have upended Elise Stefanik's. Would have taken that seat if she had been moved. She had gone on to her next chapter, but instead she's going to run for governor. I don't know. We don't know what's happening with her.
So wait, set the timer.
Okay.
What we'll do instead, we'll just bang through a couple of stories that we are not topics. They're not full topics, but we should.
Okay. All right.
First of all, you mentioned Elise Stefanik.
Yeah.
Let's not forget who Elise Stefanik found and promoted to run for the, Congress.
New York, whatever.
Out on Great Neck or whatever in Long Island. The guy that really could have gotten the deal done. And I don't know why he's not over there.
I don't know why.
George Santos, and 7 years in prison. And by the way, my eyes are so bad. Like they're playing tricks on me. When I saw the headline, I read it as George Soros sentence. And I was like, what did George Soros do? Just like in the story about the Pope, it said his hectic last day. And I read it as heretic last day.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on with my brain. So anyway, any thoughts about the Stefanik Santos pairing?
Well, here's what I think. I think George Santos is just a colossal embarrassment to any and everyone who found him, put money behind him, propped him up, tried to even defend him at any point, made up stories about him being some secret superhero, bought into him on any level whatsoever. And certainly Elise Stefanik is on the top of the list there. I think whatever she's running for, again, whether she's going to keep running for her seat or whether she's going to go for the governorship of New York, I think we have to hang what is his name? Santos. George Stefanik, I almost called him. George Santos around her neck like an anvil and let him sink her, because if you can't vet that, if you can't vet that with all those resources. See, the thing is, I think she did vet that. And didn't care, found him to be someone useful that could flip those New York seats. And, New York really handed the house that election year that he came in. New York was what flipped the House red. And by tiny little margins, but remember, they needed him. And then it all came out. They all knew. It just all came to the surface. The press was covering how corrupt he was and how all these lies he was telling about his mother, like everything. He just lied about everything in crazy ways, in insane ways. And they just kept him in there. So they didn't lose their
They had to keep him in there because they were going to lose the house. It was really disgusting. But I don't know. Maybe, maybe if Harvard were less woke, she would have learned enough there to be able to vet properly. God. Maybe that's the issue she has with her alma mater.
Oh, good Lord, God.
The other thing we have to talk about, and we don't want to talk about it too fully because it's sort of a developing story, is that now Kash Patel's FBI. Kash Patel has made an appearance. He's come down from his Poodle Club penthouse in Las Vegas and made an appearance because ICE went to a courthouse in Wisconsin, which is what they're doing now. They go to these courthouses, ICE agents do, Gestapo, and they hang out there because they know that people are going to show up for court cases, and then they arrest them and deport them, send them to worse things. And the judges don't like this because the more it happens, then people will just stop going to the court. They just won't show up, which is bad for the rule of law, something Kash Patel is supposed to be, concerned with. So this judge, I think, I don't know the exact details, but I think she had it with this bullshit and saw the ICE people allegedly and let this guy out a back door. She was like, just get out of here, go out the back. And so they're charging her with some, whatever bullshit crime, whatever, you can make your own illusions in your brain about what role she would be playing in 1930s Germany, but it's one of the good guys, right?
Right.
I should also add that before becoming a judge, she was a poverty attorney and the head of the Catholic Charities.
I'm worried about her.
Yeah. Well, if she's head of that Catholic thing, she's, be careful, guys. Better be careful, Trumpy. And Kash Patel comes out. This is what irritates me about the whole thing. That obviously, this is a horrific story, and we'll talk about it more going forward. But like, he comes out, he does this whole thing where he said, "We caught the perp, and we da 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 da." The perp, he says. The fucking FBI director says, "Perp," like he's on like NCIS, whatever the fuck.
Well, this is the thing is, and it's the thing with Hegseth too.
Yes.
Is that there's two lanes always. And it's even what Bill Maher, like this is, here's the thread. Here's the stuff that people are trying to wrap their minds around. And they're coming out in weird ends of it as they are. But there's the show that all these people are engaged with and cast by Donald to play their role in their part in the show that's being put on and produced and performed for Fox News and for MAGA land and for just the world out there. We're just putting on this show. So, Donald doesn't have to, you can cast Pete Hegseth as Secretary of Defense because that works for the show that he thinks the show. And then there's the job. Right? Donald doesn't take the job seriously at all.
Not even a little.
Not even a little. It's not and also the job isn't the job that we think he thinks it is, whether he knows how to do it or not. We're going, okay, the job of the president. He's like, no, my job is mob boss. My job is head of my job is myself. My job is personal enrichment. That's my job. Thank you, Steve Witkoff. Thank you for taking all of that money, giving it to your kids and having them invest it in my crypto. That's my job. And that guy's one of my fixers. He's my lawyer. He's my real estate guy. He's going to go get me the stuff to go in the pocket. That's his job. And Pete Hegseth's job is just be a drunk. Don't be a disaster. Just don't let anybody see you be the disaster because you have the show. All we want anybody to see is the show. They can't see the job. They think they know what the job is because it's the traditional job of government and administrative jobs and secretaries of state and secretaries of defense and all of that. We're going to put on a show as if we're doing that job. And here's the show of it. Right. But you're there for the real job, which is my personal enrichment.
Right. Deals.
The other thing that I need for my personal enrichment when it comes to like the people that have the goods on me, like Putin, is then your job is also to make sure you're carrying the Kremlin talking points, to make sure you're pushing Putin's agenda, to pave the way, because that's also my real job. My real job is his puppet. And I got to lift these sanctions. Because my personal enrichment and just my being able to breathe air is reliant on you doing Putin's work for we got to do his work for him now. We got to be on his team. We got to be Team Putin. So figure out how to put on the show as Team Putin for my personal enrichment and my safety, my personal safety. That's what we're witnessing. that's what's going on. So yeah, you go in and you meet these people, and it's a totally different way that everyone's behaving in there. Oh my God! And some people are mesmerized by that, like Bill Maher. They're taken aback. Wow, they actually know what they're doing. Yes, they know what they're doing. They're putting on a show, and they're going for their real job of personal enrichment.
That's why Melania got rid of all the, the foliage in the back there, so they could have the cameras go in to shoot the show.
They can do the tracking shot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. The tracking shot sets up the whole thing.
Yeah.
The one tracking shot.
Kosh Patel is doing the propaganda. That's part of it. She's a perp. That's the show.
No, he's a perp. It was the guy that they were after. That ICE was after. They did catch him. They ran after him, and the perp was caught. He said
the perp was caught. Oh, I thought she was talking about her.
No. He was talking about.
Yeah.
It's just so I don't know where this is going, but it's obviously it's very bad when they're arresting judges for bullshit. When we have literally a president that has 34 indictment counts.
Yeah, he's a felon.
So
he's a felon.
He is. It's criminal.
And by the way, my theory about the whole thing, because he couldn't stay in power and because he had to get this job done of lifting these sanctions and doing Putin's work for him. I don't know. The more I think about it, talking to you, the more I'm back in the world of going through my old research, looking at how corrupt he and Fred were, Fred's boy carrying on this, business front for crime families.
Mm-hmm.
And inside all of that, I just thought, oh, that's why he took all those classified documents, because he was afraid they were going to take him out.
A very legitimate fear for sure.
Because he was supposed to, he'll go do an insurrection, anything to stay in power, because if he's out of power, he's not doing the real job. And the stakes in that world, as you said, Putin is a mafia boss. He's a thug. He's a criminal. He is. The stakes when it comes to Putin, if you're not doing your job right, I mean, who knows who blew up that general?
Yeah, it could have easily been inside Putin-y,
Sure. That's
blowing up the Moscow apartments stuff.
That's Soltnevskaya Bratva used to do all the car bombings and apartment bombings. So and that was his Bratva. That's the Moscow Bratva. So, I think that was the stakes for Donald. I think there's a reason why he's, now grateful for the Secret Service.
And I think you're right. And I think if we look over in the Middle East, we have an example of what happens when the criminal that returns to power and refuses to leave power generates war and starts committing war crime atrocities on the daily because he doesn't want to leave office and get, face the consequences of his crimes.
Consequences.
It's like horrifically atrocious, horrible stuff. So, Bibi, friend of the Kushners, so.
Okay, our guest power just came back on.
Oh.
Should we? Well, I think we have to go. Let's go. I'm going to let her know because we're running. We're going to go do an after hours. We're gonna bring you on. Okay, going to bring you on next time. Okay, because we're so far into the show. It's 8:52. Okay, I'll let her know we're still live.
Okay.
Okay, sorry guys. This happens. Sometimes life comes in and you lose your guest to a power outage.
We've been very lucky, with stuff.
We have been lucky with this stuff.
Knock wood. Knocking the wood.
All right, should we move on to?
Yeah, let's move on.
Let's move on to our next topic. I'm going to put on the timer. So this is another one. I feel like I'm having the rants here.
Bitch better have my money.
Yeah.
There's a song by Rihanna, by the way.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
So Social Security's back at the top of everybody's sort of panic button in terms of inside the Beltway of saying, okay, they are coming for it again. And so the lawmakers that want to save it and preserve it are starting to raise the alarm. There's some press covering it, which was good. But I have such a problem with the messaging around these critical issues. And I don't know how to get this message through, that if you say it's an earned benefit, fight for your earned benefit, that people's eyes glaze over and they don't, it doesn't, no one knows what earned benefit means. I'm sorry.
You got to fight for your earned benefit. Yeah. It's not good.
It's not good. And no, that's technically what it is. And just because you put earned in all caps doesn't mean people are going to connect to it. Now, people know what their Social Security is and that they rely on it. But there, as a concept, as it's sort of like being something that's being destroyed and it won't be available to folks, they can't wrap their minds around that. They just don't think it will happen. And I think before you can mobilize a response, a proper response of like, do not do this. And then we did have town halls earlier last month where people were outraged and freaking out, and rightfully so. And would want them to come, all those folks to come back and pressure the town halls. But Republicans have figured out, don't go to town halls. We're just not having town halls. So they sort of, like a lot of stuff, like with Roe getting thrown out the door, right? And no one thought that would happen, but they kind of released the attention beforehand. Okay, show some town halls, and then they figure out how, okay, we are going to do this. So how can we avoid this backlash or avoid whatever? And then, so they almost do a pre-thing so they can figure out how they can manage and tamp people down. How do we put on the show, right? So that the show works. Okay. And the show this time is, we're going to privatize Social Security. It's all going to be better. Just leave it in the hands of the businessman. It's fine. We got you. You're going to be fine. Don't let the Dems and the libs, make you hysterical. You're blah, 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 blah. No. So earned benefit is not the counter to that. It's not. Saying this, they're stealing your money. They're going to steal your money. You remember, how you looked at your paycheck for 30 fucking years? And then they said Social Security, and there was like a tax. They took money out. You go, wow, they're taking a lot out of my paycheck. Oh my God, you worked hard. You earned the money. It's your money from your labor, from your job that you showed up for, and you did, whether you liked it or not. You went to that job because you had to pay for stuff, and you didn't have as much of your own money available to you to spend on the important things in your life because they took it out of your paycheck. The government took it out of your paycheck, and the government took it out of the paycheck and said, we have a right to take this out. This Social Security, this particular tax, we're going to take it out of the paycheck. But it's yours. We promise it's going to be there for you. This is like a savings. It's a forced savings account that we're forcing on you, but it will be there for you. You're going to have
a security guarantee.
It's a security guarantee. And you know what? We're even going to call it an entitlement, because you're entitled to your own goddamn money. We took it. Guess what, folks? That money, all those years that you didn't have a choice, that your money that the government took saying it's going to be there for you, they're stealing it. They're stealing it from you. You can stop them, but you're going to have to show up and scream real loud, say, give me my money. You don't get to, because we don't know where they're going to spend it. We don't know where they're going to take it, what they're going to do with it.
Mars?
Oh, probably. Some oligarch? Yeah.
Katy Perry's not going to go off into space by herself. She needs...
That's the messaging. They're stealing your money. They are stealing your paycheck, your money. They're stealing it. It's yours. They're taking it. You were relying on that. You worked real hard for years and years. You gave that money to the government because it was going to be there for you when you were done working. Guess what? Or if something bad happened to you or you needed it. Nope. They're keeping it. They're keeping your money.
And there's a model for this. There's a model for it.
There's a model for this. Yeah, in Russia. So Putin had, when RT, Russian Today, that when it became state media, it was always friendly to him, but when it really truly became state media for Putin, and Putin's, that he had to have that, was when there was a young person revolution. You had to stamp that down. Young people organizing and showing up is a real threat to authoritarians and dictators. But the even bigger threat is when you lose the oldies, when you lose people 50, 55 and up, who are the ones that really do actually show up and vote and get involved. You cannot lose. And the ones that actually tend to be more conservative and tend to be more, in loving a strong man for whatever reason. They think, okay, we're just going to be daddy now. And that's it. We just need daddy. And then these kids, like whatever. That strip of the population is vital for authoritarians to maintain their control. If those folks start showing up in the streets, and especially if grandma and grandpa are showing up saying, get them out, you're in real trouble. And so what happened in Russia was, all of a sudden, a lot of people, because it was a former communist country, obviously, and they had a different economic model, and then it switched over. And then it was close to around the time of Crimea, just all of a sudden, Putin was like, yeah. And the administration was like, we're sorry, folks, the pension fund is gone, which was like their Social Security. It's gone. You're not going to have your pensions. And people really needed that money in that country, just like they really need it here. Like it's the difference between whether you keep your lights on and whether you have plumbing and, you can have food on the table. And so, and it was sort of like we had a horrible economy. We're having a hard time as a country. It was sort of like a nation in distress, but Putin will somehow fix it. Well, there was this guy who was an accountant, worked for Bill Browder and another oligarch, and named Sergei Magnitsky. And he was looking for money that had that disappeared out of the oligarchs' funds, and stumbled upon the missing pension money. And lo and behold, it was in Putin's accounts. He put it in, he pocketed it. And that guy had to be tortured and killed so that he would stop this news. And the Russia Today had to become massive state propaganda, because it could not be that the people of Russia got the message and understood that it wasn't just terrible economy. Oh my God, the West is taking us down. Oh, we're in trouble, but we're going to stick together. And, we don't have the pension money anymore. He stole it from them. He stole the people's money, their retirement funds. He stole from them and put it in his own pocket. Okay? So, look for if we have a big uprising around this, which we should, a very reactionary strong man, lock it all down, because the one thing you can't have is a bunch of white men over the age of 50 screaming for your head because you took their money.
Yeah. At the end of the day, I think the Social Security is the one thing that will pierce the bubble when those checks stop coming. But don't worry, Elon Musk has figured out a way to make the Social Security Administration more efficient by firing everybody and replacing them with AI and I don't know, some high school kids that he likes for some reason.
Well, also came out, I think a couple of days ago, might have been even earlier than that they also just went in and took 4 million names and said these people are dead, whether they were alive or not. Because he was going, oh, there's so many people that are dead that are getting Social Security, all these scams, or getting Medicaid. And he didn't have the proof of that. And so because it was just, it's just the way death works. I'm sorry, Elon. People die mid quarter, you know what I mean? And so by the time you renew the rules or before it,
and
a
surviving
lot of
spouses
people
and children
die
get
every
money
day.
too.
The what?
Surviving spouses and children get the money also.
Correct.
So the names are still on the roll. Yeah.
Yeah. So names are still on the rolls. And so he wanted to produce a result that matched everything they've been telling everybody about why they were in Social Security messing around. And so to produce that, to do the show, to put on the show, real harm is happening with this show. My God. They just claimed that 4 million people were dead and flagged them as dead, whether they were alive or not. So, and that's fucked up the whole thing. Plus they shut down offices. So it's a real mess for people who all of a sudden were declared dead just so Elon could make the data match his bullshit.
And they want everything to be like online. And so you can only do it online, which is great if you're like 95 years old. It's wonderful. Just get out your thing and log in, put in your FTP information. I'm sure you remember the password. Oh my God. 2-factor. It's all bad. Okay. Do you have any announcements?
Do I have an announcement? No, I don't think I have an announcement. You'll have to remind me. We were going to make an announcement with our guest, but we'll wait. What do you got?
Yeah. The only thing I have is there's going to be an audiobook of my essay collection, The Age of what is it called? The Age of Unreality. The title keeps I can't remember the title of my own book. So, and it's what's good. It's narrated not by me. It's narrated by Kevin O'Brien, who has done 200 previous audiobooks, and he does a really great job with it. It was I had to listen to it obviously to make sure we said things right and whatever. And it was it's great. It was a lot of fun for me to listen to somebody else reading the stuff. You have that experience all the time as a screenwriter. I don't get that so much. So it's good. It was fun, and that'll be out. I don't know when. Soon. Next week maybe. But look for that. That's my only.
Look for it.
That's my only announcement.
I love that. And then we're going to have an after hours. Yeah.
We said we would, and we will. And
okay.
I don't know what we're going to talk about, but
I don't know what we're going to talk about because
we've talked now already for an hour.
We'll have it. And so to have that, folks, go ahead and subscribe. If you're not a subscriber, hit subscribe. And then there's a little feature there called Join. And when you join, we make it a very low threshold. Join us and people give gift memberships, so it's great. So the after hours is for members only. It's just a little thing that we do every once in a while to say hey to our members. And usually I'm in my pajamas by the time, even though we take 5 minutes, I'm like out of this and ready to go. So not that it's that kind of after hours, but need a t-shirt.
Maybe we should advertise it that way.
Maybe we should.
For the ratings.
We just do it
good for the traffic. We need the clicks.
Yeah, we need the traffic.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Last topic is.
Last topic, I put the timer on.
Yeah. We have to talk about the Pope who died this week. Right after seeing JD Vance. And I have nothing else to add to that. It's just so perfect. I feel bad for him, for the Pope, for having to spend his last hours on earth with this horrifically Luciferian asshole. But it is kind of his job, I guess, to be like, no, it's a Pope thing to do, to be like, I have to try to talk sense into this horrible person. Because maybe he'll listen, I think that Francis was obviously any of these people, and I did a deep dive on popes this week. They all have flaws. They all have things that they say that you're like, oh God, why did he do, and any leader of the Catholic Church in this day and age has to be evaluated based on the sex abuse scandals. Obviously that doesn't go away, and that counts. But I think that generally speaking, Francis was a good person, a good human. I think he was a good Christian in that he tried to, figure out what Jesus would do and then do it, which is, I thought, the point of the whole, kind of thing. And I think for our purposes here on the show, I think he was a voice against the bad guys. I think he was on our side. I think he was against the Opus Dei people because they hated his guts. I think he was against the fascists and all of this stuff. I think he was definitely didn't like the way that Vance was treating the immigrants and
Yeah.
this El Salvador business. He hated all of that. So he was a voice for for the good stuff, for the downtrodden and the vulnerable and people who needed that. And I think that
And for
hopefully
justice and for,
all of
equity.
that,
Yeah.
even, I mean, he didn't go so far as he should have, but even the LGBT community, he was pretty good about, much more so than any previous pope had ever been. So, that as well. So, now tomorrow is the funeral, which Donald Trump is going to, and he's going to enjoy it. What did he say? I'm looking forward to it. Because you're looking forward to a funeral, it's fun. It's on the agenda. It'll be interesting to see how big of an ass he makes of himself there. And it's going to be interesting to see, after the conclave, who the next pope will be, because there's going to be big push from the Opus Dei reactionary conservative faction of the church and those cardinals to kind of, get more hidebound, more hardline, more retrograde, and, make the papacy great again, kind of thing.
Oh,
But
God.
Francis, I think, changed the rules, the voting rules, so that anybody over the age of 80 is not allowed to vote. And he put in personally a lot of, like, a vast majority of the cardinals who are younger.
Oh, I didn't understand that. So if the
Yeah.
cardinals are over 80, they can't vote?
Apparently, that's what I heard. Yeah.
Okay.
So he kind of rigged it. He rigged it. It's rigged.
Okay,
It's not
good.
steal.
I know that he did, of the 156 or something cardinals under the age of 80, 115 or a huge portion of them.
He packed the conclave.
He packed the conclave.
Yeah,
He
that's
did.
what he did. So
Packed the
it is hopefully likely that we're going to get somebody good. I think that the Pope certainly has a lot of influence. The position, it's a man. It's always a man. Should be a woman. That would really freak. They would all just they would just freak out so bad. It'd be wonderful. But I think the position still has enormous influence in terms of spirituality, and just the fact that there's so many Catholics, lapsed or otherwise, around the world in all countries. Everywhere there's Catholics. So whether or not people hew to what the Pope's saying, they still listen to what he says. I think that's important. But I also think that no matter what happens, it's kind of a win-win for the good guys, because if it's a Francis sort of Pope, that's obviously good, because he's just going to keep doing the stuff that Francis was doing and hopefully take it even more progressively, certainly in terms of LGBT and the abortion thing, which they need to fucking open a science book and figure that out. But if it's one of these bad ones, if it's one of these creepy, weird Opus Dei people, the difference between a pope and a president or a strongman or whatever is that the Pope relies on you staying in the faith. Anybody that's Catholic can tomorrow be like, yeah, I'm out. Fuck you, I'm done.
Yeah.
So they can't go too far, because they will risk alienating certainly the American Catholics, which is to say the wealthy ones, where they're getting the money from. So they need that. They can't, I think, go too far right, or it's going to really, really hurt them in the pocketbook, which is, as you know, very important. So
very important. We were having this discussion, because I'm genuinely asking you and genuinely asking the audience of, like, how much power does a pope really have when it comes to what we're up against as free people? So I don't know the answer to that. I think one of the things that we talked about that we kind of landed on was, well, they certainly can have power. He has power in the culture war.
Yeah.
And to lean into these really regressive concepts, social concepts and constructs for uh, what level of freedom, and who has power over another culturally, that tends to is now in this era translating into real policy that does affect our lives. And I think there's power there. There's power of cultural influence. But as you said, if it's some, Catholics will just leave. They'll just leave the church. They've done it before.
They've done it before. On the other hand, I mean, to your point about the influence, it's been around for 2,000 years. That's a long, long time. And there's been a steady procession of popes, many of them absolutely horrible, most of them completely mediocre, and some of them really, really genuinely good and positive.
Yeah.
But if you go back, back into the 19th century, and they tend to flip-flop. They do tend to flip-flop. That is a pattern. So, we had Benedict, kind of right-wing, Francis, good.
Oh, you mean like a pendulum swing?
Yeah, but not all the things. John Paul II was also kind of conservative. So it depends. But
yeah,
there have been popes that have fought for things like labor. Leo the 13th who was the pope around I think he died in 1903, was very, very supportive of the unions and all that kind of stuff. And, workers being treated with dignity and all of that. The guy that was the pope during the Second World War was, put in a very bad position and didn't handle it very well. One of the original popes, Leo the Great, back in the Attila the Hun days, went to the Attila the Hun and was like, you shouldn't come down here and invade Italy. Let me tell you why. And convinced him not to invade Italy. So I don't know that the pope, but there's a gravitas that comes with the job.
Yeah.
And any of the people that are in those jobs are capable of, how, like, what was that guy's name? Is it Van Jones? The guy that keeps saying on the this is the day that Donald Trump became president.
Van Jones. Yeah.
It's like, this is the day that so-and-so became pope,
Oh.
By the way, this is something you'll find interesting.
Yeah.
The first pope that took on a different name, because there's now this tradition where you become pope,
right,
and you pick a different name. If I was the pope, I would not have to, because all the good popes are named Gregory. That's just the thing.
Oh.
But but they take different, and the reason why is because there's this horribly corrupt Caligula-esque person that became the pope. I think it was one of the Borgias or something. And kind of didn't want people to know that it was one of the Borgias. So he was like, I'm just going to be John the 12th now, guys, or whatever it was.
Oh, so he was hiding his little crime family ties.
Yes. And people were like, and this is before the internet, because it's like, whatever, 1170 or whatever the hell year. No, it was before that. Nobody knows. Oh, it's the Pope. Why would they know it's this other person? They don't know. So it's smart.
Well, what they also have? What they also have is a lot of real estate. The church's power is in real estate.
Land power. Like the guy
Land power.
Michael Curtis's book. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and we've had some really corrupt cardinals. There was Cardinal Spellman.
Oh God. Yeah.
Yeah. We've got these, we've got these gangsters in there, the American side of things for sure. So go ahead.
No, go ahead. Finish your thought, because I don't know. It feels odd that we're getting that. I think because the Pope before Francis was like, yeah, I'm just going to retire. I don't want to be Pope anymore. And then Francis came in and did I thought, a beautiful job. He was clearly a good human and tried to live up to the promise of the gospel and all of that. And but it almost feels like, I don't know that it why do we need popes? What's happening? Why is this still going on? There's a little bit of that inside me of like, really? What's happening? Maybe it's time to cash in on that real estate. Maybe it's time to sell. It's never going to happen. That's that I can assure you. What would Jesus do? He would not sell the real estate.
I don't know. I know that Steve Witkoff would probably be special envoy to the Vatican if all of a sudden the new pope was like, let's sell some real estate.
Yeah.
Let's go.
You know, so we're going to do the after hours at 1:30 at 9:30.
9:30.
Which is 11 minutes from now. And
so
I think
only have 11 minutes to get through things. Are we just going to get through it for another 11 minutes?
I think I was going to say that, you know, one thing that I think Francis, something that he would probably feel strongly about is that
we're going to get through it.